Nyla Cross hit the ground screaming. Not from pain, though the shattered bone jutting from her thigh begged for attention, but from rage. Her ship had just exploded above her in a sky choked with twin moons and ash, and the only thing she could think was, "Great, now I owe Lieutenant Brandt 50 credits for losing a bet I never meant to lose." Smoke rose from the crater around her, the last remnants of her scout vessel curling up like dying fingers. Somewhere overhead, alien voices crackled in a language she didn't recognize. And then laughter. Not the funny kind, the cruel kind. The kind that made her stomach flip more than the impact had. 6 of them emerged from the purple-hued foliage, rifles slung over shoulders like accessories and smugness hanging off their scaly faces like it was going out of fashion. Nexary. Reptilian, armored, and absurdly confident in their ugly exosuits. One of them, the smallest but loudest, pointed at Nyla's broken leg and chuckled in his raspy, flanged accent. "Oh no. Look, it leaks from the thigh. Is that your species flavor syrup?" Nyla gritted her teeth and tried not to pass out. Humor. That was her only weapon now. She spat out blood and replied, "Wouldn't you like a taste, Gecko Face?" That triggered more laughter. Another Nexary pulled her helmet off, ripping off a chunk of her scalp in the process, and whistled low. "This one is defective. Is this what passes for a Terran warrior now? Broken bones and sarcasm?" The leader, broader and more decorated, stepped forward. He tilted his head, studying her like a child might a cracked toy. He picked up her helmet, looked at it curiously, then forced it back on her head, backwards. The others howled. Nyla saw nothing but the dark inside of her own gear. She couldn't move, couldn't stand. They hadn't even restrained her. They knew she couldn't run. She was less than prey. She was entertainment. Her fingers clenched around a broken piece of her cockpit chair, sharp enough to maybe kill one of them before they turned her into goo. She whispered under her breath, "Think, Nyla. Think faster than the pain." But the truth was, she was done. She was half dead, surrounded, alone. She couldn't radio Earth, couldn't reach her team, couldn't even blink straight. And then the wind shifted. It wasn't dramatic. There was no thunderclap or sudden eclipse. Just a change in air pressure, a sudden stillness, as if the moon itself had inhaled sharply. The laughter died. One of the Nexary turned sharply to the horizon, his grin fading. Another dropped the helmet he was using as a makeshift drum. The leader narrowed his eyes and took a step forward, scanning the tree-line. He raised a hand for silence. Too late. From the shadows stepped something massive. Its body was plated in a mix of metal and sinew, hulking but strangely graceful. A fusion of machine and creature. 2 red eyes glowed from beneath a darkened visor, and its breath sounded like a hydraulic press exhaling. One Nexary dropped his weapon. The others took a few steps back. The leader scoffed. "Is that a Juggernaut?" No response. "He doesn't even have a unit tag. Looks defective. Like the human." The towering figure didn't move. Then, slowly, it looked down at Nyla, still lying in the dirt with her helmet backwards and blood pooling at her side. And then, in a voice that cracked through the silence like a bullet through glass, it said 3 words. "She's mine." The patrol didn't laugh this time. They stood there, stunned, processing the words like they were a code they'd never heard before. Nyla, still blind, still bleeding, whispered in confusion. "I'm what now?" The Juggernaut took a step forward. The ground trembled, just a little. One of the Nexary reached for his weapon. Another put a hand out to stop him. "No, don't. That's not a standard unit. It can't be." The leader regained his bravado. He sneered. "Mine? You want this broken thing? We were going to toss her to the wildlife for fun. Be our guest. No refunds." And then the Juggernaut moved. No warning. No prep. Just violence. The first alien's chest folded inward with a metallic crunch as the Juggernaut slammed into him with inhuman speed. The second tried to flee but was yanked backward by a cable that shot from the Juggernaut's wrist, dragging him screaming into the trees. The third managed to fire a shot, but it bounced off the Juggernaut's armored plating like a spark off a tank. In 12 seconds 3 Nexri were dead and the rest had scattered, cursing in their native tongue. When it was quiet again, the Juggernaut walked over to Nyla. Her helmet, still backward, was gently lifted and tossed aside. She squinted against the sun and tried to focus on the face, or whatever it had, for a savior. You know me? The machine's head tilted. You still flinch when you lie. So yeah? I know you. Nyla blinked. Recognition began to dawn, but pain stole the thought before it could take shape. She passed out. When she came to, she was in the cold belly of a dropship, her leg wrapped in foam stabilizers and her chest buzzing with painkillers. The Juggernaut was piloting, though how, she didn't know. There were no controls. The whole ship responded to him like it was an extension of his body. She sat up, groaning. What was that back there? He didn't turn. A favor. A favor? You saved me once. On Drakkar 5. I was still human then. I owe you? She narrowed her eyes, still dizzy. What happened to you? They made me useful. She leaned back, heartbeat unsteady. This wasn't a rescue. It was a reckoning. And somewhere in the depths of space, someone was going to pay for putting her in that crater. Because now she wasn't just a scout. She was a variable. A memory. And worst of all for whoever ordered her capture. She was his. Ask ChatGPT. The hum of the dropship wasn't mechanical. It was alive, like a heartbeat with metal veins. Nyla sat across from the Juggernaut, her leg propped up, half-healed thanks to the alien biotech foam pulsing beneath the bandages. The cabin lights flickered now and then, not from malfunction, but from the ship responding to him. To it. Whatever he was now. Her head throbbed, and every few minutes she had to remind herself she wasn't dreaming. That he was real. That he'd said her name before she told him. That he remembered. The Juggernaut hadn't spoken since liftoff. He sat in what resembled a cockpit but had no controls. No buttons. Just a chair fused with wires and bone-like tubes that slithered into his spine. His armor was an ugly, beautiful thing, scarred but functional, more organ than metal, yet solid like warforged titanium. She wanted to ask how much of him was left. But she was scared of the answer. So instead she asked, "Where are we going?" A long pause, then he replied without turning. "Somewhere not full of idiots. I know a place." "You always did have a way with words." He turned his head slightly. "I didn't speak much back then either." She leaned back, watching him. Back then. The words clung to her like smoke. There were flashes, moments from the mission on Drakkar 5, a recon gone wrong, ambushed by Nexri assassins, the mud and fire, and one soldier dragging her out while taking blaster hits to the chest. That soldier had died. At least, command said he did. You were Callan Rise. I still am, somewhere in here. She frowned. They said you were dead. He finally turned fully toward her. His face was partially covered by a half-mask, metal fused into skin. One eye glowed softly red, the other human and tired. Not dead. Just harvested. I volunteered for the Forge project after they pulled what was left of me out. I was tired of being breakable. She shook her head slowly, unable to hide the disgust. You volunteered for this? This Frankenstein nightmare? I volunteered to never watch my squadmates die again because I couldn't get back up fast enough. That shut her up. For a moment, she remembered that day too well. Callan had held off 3 Nexri with nothing but a sidearm and a steel pipe while she dragged the wounded out. He'd bought them time. She'd always believed he bought it with his life. I thought you were gone, she whispered. For good. So did I. But they stitched me back together and filled in the cracks with weaponized rage. She studied him for a while longer, the silence between them thick with ghosts. Then she asked, "Why did you say it like that?" He didn't look up. "Say what?" "She's mine." He hesitated, then replied, "Because it worked." That was not an answer. That was a deflection wrapped in truth. But she let it sit. Outside the viewport, The stars stretched and twisted as they approached a warp gate. The ship's hum deepened, and Nyla's skin prickled. The foam on her leg pulsed again, pulling her attention. It was changing color. Before she could ask, the Juggernaut spoke again. Your wound was infected with kinetic spore bacteria. The foam's rewriting your tissue temporarily. You'll feel stronger for a while. Stronger, huh? Great. Maybe I can bench press trauma. He snorted. Almost a laugh. Almost. The dropship lurched as it exited warp near a shattered moon, its debris orbiting a small, nearly dead planet with patches of green that looked more like bruises than forests. The Juggernaut angled the ship toward a blackened outpost, partially buried in rock. It looked abandoned. But the moment they landed, doors unsealed like the place had just been sleeping. Nyla stepped out on unsteady legs, limping as the ship's hatch closed behind her. The air smelled of burnt ozone and something like stale honey. Inside, the outpost pulsed with faint power, flickering lights, and whispers of old machinery. She followed him down a corridor lined with broken screens and rusting panels. Her voice echoed as she asked, "So this is your safe place?" "It's forgotten. That's safer than hidden." "Makes sense. Like my social life." He paused, turned back, and looked at her with something that resembled amusement. "You always joke when you're scared. And you always stare like a serial killer in an opera mask." He turned and kept walking. Nyla followed. They entered a large room, part command center, part hangar, where a central terminal lit up the moment the Juggernaut stepped near. The screen came alive with data, language shifting until it landed on Earth Standard. Nyla leaned in, eyes scanning the screen. It displayed encrypted Nexary chatter. Keywords lit up: Veltrax 9, Human Scout, Artifact Extraction, Protocol Omnis. Her heart stopped. Omnis? That was just a myth. A pre-war rumor. A sentient weapon so dangerous it had been buried in code and dust. She looked at him. They were after me. But not because I'm me. Because of something I was carrying. You weren't carrying it. He pointed at the screen. You are it. Her stomach turned cold. What the hell does that mean? Before he could answer, a siren blared softly, something approaching fast. The Juggernaut's head turned, eyes narrowing. They found us. Probably the patrol's backup. You said this place was forgotten? Apparently not by everyone. He moved to a wall and tapped it. A hatch opened, revealing a smaller skiff, sleek, nimble, but clearly ancient tech. She hesitated. You want me to fly that thing? No. You're going to sit tight. I'm going to lead them away. Like hell you are. You can't even walk without limping sideways like a drunk bird. Let me handle this. She stepped forward, eyes blazing. Don't make me watch you die again. He stopped. Looked at her. The tension froze the room. For a second, he almost looked human again. Then don't. He turned, climbed into the skiff, and activated it with a gesture. The wall peeled open, revealing a tunnel lined with launch rails. She watched him leave, teeth clenched, hands shaking. He was still him, under all the metal and programming. Still Callan. Still the one who covered her back when the world burned. And now, once again, he was flying into fire to keep her breathing. Only this time, she wasn't going to just sit and wait. Not a chance. Not when she had bones to break, memories to unpack, and secrets buried inside her body that apparently had the power to rewrite the stars. The silence after the launch was worse than the gunfire. Nyla paced the outpost's main room, ignoring the throb in her leg and the sweat crawling down her spine. The Juggernaut had disappeared into the black, drawing the Nexary away like a flame luring moths, and now she was left with nothing but the hum of forgotten tech and a terminal flashing red alerts every 30 seconds. She kept glancing at the exit tunnel, hoping maybe he'd come roaring back in and say something stupid like "Did you miss me?" or "Bring snacks." But time kept crawling and the alarms didn't stop. She walked back to the console, tapping through Nexary data again. Code. Coordinates. Omnis. That word kept echoing in her skull like it was alive. She didn't know what it meant fully, but she knew it mattered. Too much. Her fingers hovered over a line of decrypted code, one section highlighted in pulsing gold. Human neural match, active. Status, sync initializing. Sync. With what? She slammed a fist on the terminal, but the screen just flickered and adjusted the words as if amused. She hated this. Sitting. Waiting. Being helpless while someone else fought her fight. Again. Her comm crackled. Static, then a deep voice laced with distortion. Contact in 2 minutes. Don't run. She snatched up the earpiece, teeth clenched. Define contact. There was a pause. Then the Juggernaut's voice, sharp now, urgent. They're not following me anymore. Something's wrong. They turned. They're coming back to you. Perfect, she muttered. Tell me something I don't know. I already did. You're sinking. Whatever's inside you, it's waking up. She stared at the screen. The sync rate had jumped. 17%. 24. 30. What is it? She asked quietly. Not over comms. Just get ready. She dropped the earpiece and grabbed the only weapon left in the room, a rusted plasma rifle missing its side plate. One pull of the trigger, and it wheezed like an old man with bronchitis. Great. She checked the mag anyway and limped toward the hallway, body tense. Footsteps echoed in the distance, too rhythmic to be wild, too unhurried to be human. They were close. She ducked behind a wall just as the first patrol unit entered the outpost. A Nexury recon trooper, helmet slick with reflective black plating, scanning the room with a visor that blinked in different spectrums. Another followed. Then another. Their rifles moved in fluid sweeps, covering every angle. One of them stepped near her hiding spot. She held her breath, finger on the trigger of the ancient rifle. The weapon chirped and clicked, trying to spin up. She muttered under her breath. If you embarrass me right now, I will bury you in a trash fire. The rifle blinked red. Too late. The nearest trooper turned. A sound escaped him, sharp and guttural, and then Nyla screamed and fired. The rifle fired one charged burst before exploding in her hands, blasting her sideways into a pile of metal crates. Heat burned up her arm, and her vision swam, but the shot landed. The first Nexury dropped, gurgling, smoke pouring from the hole in his visor. The others turned toward her, and she scrambled, grabbing a broken pipe and hurling it like a spear. It bounced off one of them, earning nothing but annoyance. A third raised his weapon, and she knew she wouldn't move fast enough. Her leg dragged like a dead weight, her muscles screamed, and her brain screamed louder. Then the floor under the Nexury exploded. The Juggernaut didn't walk in. He crashed through, rising from a breach in the outpost like a demon unburied. His arms gleamed with energy, gauntlets humming with electric life. He didn't waste time. He moved. One trooper was grabbed midair and used to knock the other into a wall. Bone cracked. Armor splintered. A scream turned into static. The last one managed to land a blow, slashing the Juggernaut across the back with a plasma blade. The metal hissed. Juggernaut didn't flinch. He turned and drove his fist through the trooper's chest, then through the body through a support beam. Nyla blinked up at him from the floor, her ears ringing. You always show up late and overdramatic? He extended a hand. Only for you. She took it, letting him pull her up. She groaned. He examined her briefly. Still in one piece? Mostly. That gun's another story. Good. Because I found something. He led her back to the terminal, hands moving quickly through encrypted files, bypassing firewalls like they were made of paper. New data loaded. A map. An underground vault. Coordinates. This is beneath Veltrax 9. Deep. Unscanned. Hidden. You think Omnis is down there? I don't think. I know. Nyla stared at the map, brain running ahead of her body. And you think I'm somehow connected to it? You're not connected. You're the key. She took a step back. That's not comforting. You were on a classified mission before you crashed. You accessed an old relay node. Do you even remember? She blinked, tried to think. There was a flash. A tower. Symbols. A pulse of light. A whisper. I touched something. And it touched back, he said quietly. She turned away, pacing. What does it want from me? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Again, not helpful. He walked to her, voice steady. If Omnis activates, it doesn't just wake up. It adapts. Consumes. Rewrites. But it needs a neural host. She met his gaze, feeling the heat in her skull now. Like her thoughts weren't entirely hers anymore. And I'm the host? You might already be past that. You might be the weapon. She laughed, short and bitter. Well, that's ironic. All those years of war, and now I might be the nuke everyone's been scared of. He nodded. Only now, we get to decide who we pointed at. The map flickered. Outside, more ships were landing. Time was short. We need to move, he said. You sure about this? She asked. No. But I'm sure about you. She didn't know whether to feel inspired or terrified. Maybe both. She took one last look around the outpost, the place where everything shifted from survival to war again, and then followed him to the hatch. As they descended into the hidden tunnels beneath Veltrax 9, one thought echoed in her mind louder than the alarms, louder than the warnings, louder than even the Juggernaut's gravel voice. If she really was the weapon, then maybe it was time someone started aiming back. The descent into the vault was not a straight path. The tunnel beneath Veltrax 9 twisted like the inside of a dying beast, pulsating with leftover energy and forgotten heat. The walls were ribbed with old alien tech, bones of something half organic and half machine. Every step they took deeper into the darkness, the temperature dropped and the silence got thicker, like the moon itself was holding its breath. Nyla kept one hand on the wall for balance, the other hovering near the energy pistol she had looted off one of the patrol corpses. Her leg still throbbed, but the pain was a whisper now, lost under adrenaline and the growing hum in her skull. The Juggernaut moved ahead of her, his body glowing faintly from the seams in his armor, casting long shadows that danced like phantoms. He seemed to know where he was going, which only made her more nervous. She didn't like places people shouldn't be able to navigate. That meant someone had been here before. That meant this place had history, and history usually came with teeth. You said this place was buried for centuries, she muttered, brushing cobweb-like filaments from her face. It was. But Omnis leaves traces, even when it's sleeping. Omnis, the word again. Like a name and a warning stitched into one. She wanted to ask what it had once been, who built it, why it needed a host, but her mouth stayed shut. The deeper they went, the more her questions turned inward. Her skin tingled. Her fingertips buzzed. Her memories twisted. Things felt out of order. She remembered smells and sounds that didn't belong to her. A lullaby in a language she didn't speak. Screaming in a corridor she'd never walked. Data flooding her mind like it was trying to organize itself. Something was crawling through her thoughts, polite but firm, like a guest arranging the furniture. They reached a wide chamber sealed by a door the size of a small shuttle. Symbols etched across the surface pulsed in a slow rhythm, the language not written but felt. As she stepped closer, the symbols brightened and rearranged themselves. She didn't read them. She understood them. Authorized host confirmed. Vault access initiated. The door cracked open with a hiss, and a pressure wave rolled over them, thick with age and something worse. Something hungry. Nyla stumbled back. I didn't do anything. You breathed near it, the Juggernaut said calmly. That was enough. The vault beyond was beautiful in a way only nightmares could be. A massive dome stretched out before them, lit by soft blue veins of energy running through the walls and ceiling like a star map etched in bone. In the center floated a core of light, held in suspension by invisible forces, spinning slowly like it was dreaming. She couldn't move. Her feet locked. Her breath caught. The moment her eyes met the light, she heard it. Nyla. She staggered, clutching her temple. You hear that? The Juggernaut didn't move. His voice was low. What did it say? My name. It said my name? The core pulsed in response. A voice echoed again, now louder, layered with tones that seemed stitched from static and song. Nyla Cross. Human. Survivor. Suitable. She took a step back. I don't like this. The Juggernaut stepped in front of her. Shielded her. The core responded again, this time with force. A wave of heat burst from it, slamming into them. Nyla hit the ground. He held his ground. Sparks crackled along his armor. He growled. Back off. The core did not listen. The room darkened. The walls lit up with images. War. Worlds burning. Stars imploding into red ruin. Machines walking through cities like gods, their footsteps erasing civilizations. At the center of it all was a shape. Shifting. Boundless. Omnis. The voice returned. We are legacy. We are weapon. We are survival. Nyla crawled to her knees, struggling to think, to separate her own thoughts from the avalanche pressing into her skull. You want to use me, she said through gritted teeth. You want a shell. A host. We want to live. With you. Through you. She turned to the Juggernaut. Do I even have a choice? He looked at her, his one human eye colder than usual. No one ever did with Omnis. That's comforting. The light shifted. Tendrils of energy reached toward her, gentle, like vines in slow motion. She backed away again, hand on her weapon. The weapon sparked. Hostile action will terminate sync, the voice warned. Good, she snapped. Suddenly the chamber trembled. An alarm howled. The vault flickered with red light. The Juggernaut looked up. Someone's forcing the door. She stood fast, adrenaline burning away her hesitation. How did they find us? Doesn't matter. We need to move. Now. The core pulsed again. Wait. But the Juggernaut was already pulling her away, moving fast. As they reached the exit, a second door sealed behind them, isolating the core. Nyla leaned against the wall, gasping. That thing's alive. It's more than that, he said. It's a war waiting for a spark. And I'm the match. They sprinted back through the corridor, the vault rumbling behind them. Explosions rocked the tunnel. The patrol had brought artillery. A section of the ceiling collapsed, forcing them to find another exit. Twisting paths, abandoned chambers, flickering lights guiding them. They burst into a secondary exit tunnel, and for a brief moment, the sky above them returned. But it wasn't empty. Nexary gunships circled overhead, and in their center descended a new figure in gleaming red and gold armor, flanked by drones. Nyla froze. Who the hell is that? Juggernaut's voice dropped an octave. Admiral Vrog. Commander of the Nexary fleets. The one who ordered you captured. He wants Omnis for himself. Fantastic. I was hoping for a fan club. Vrog landed lightly, his cape flowing like it had its own personality. His helmet split open to reveal a face that looked carved from stone and lined with malice. Human. You've made quite the mess. Nyla raised her pistol. Get in line. But Vrog wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the Juggernaut. And you? The hybrid freak. I've waited years to dissect you. The Juggernaut stepped forward, voice cold and sharp. Come try. And just like that, everything broke loose. Gunfire. Energy blasts. The mountain shook again. Drones flew in like hornets. Nyla ducked behind a boulder, returning fire, her movements sharper, faster than they should be. She felt her reflexes adjusting mid-action, her aim becoming perfect. The sync hadn't stopped. It had just hidden. The Juggernaut and Vrog clashed in the middle of it all, two titans made of hate and steel. Their battle lit up the sky like a collapsing sun. Nyla fired and moved, instincts she didn't recognize taking over. She wasn't just fighting anymore. She was calculating, predicting, executing. And somewhere, deep in her mind, a voice whispered again. Now you see. Now you feel. She didn't know where this was going, but one thing was clear. Omnis wasn't done. And neither was she. The world had become noise and fire. The ground buckled beneath Nyla's feet as energy blasts ripped through the air, vaporizing chunks of rock and metal alike. Nexari soldiers advanced in squads, precise and relentless, but every step they took forward was met by the Juggernaut's fury. He moved through them like a storm wrapped in steel, his arms extending into bladed coils that sliced through armor like cloth. Every strike he made was calculated, efficient, terrifying. He wasn't just fighting. He was erasing. Nyla stayed low behind broken terrain, her body still crackling with something she hadn't asked for but couldn't ignore. Every time she blinked, her vision sharpened. Trajectories appeared in her mind like suggestions. Enemy weak points glowed faintly. She didn't want to admit it, but Omnis was awake inside her now, not whispering anymore, but watching, analyzing, improving her. It was no longer a question of whether it would take her over. It already had. The only real question left was whether she could still call herself human when this was done. She spotted a Nexari heavy trooper lining up a shot at the Juggernaut from behind. Without thinking, she aimed and fired 2 bursts, both perfect. The trooper dropped before he could squeeze the trigger. She didn't cheer. Didn't even flinch. It felt too normal. The Juggernaut turned slightly, nodding once. Good shot. I wasn't aiming for him. I sneezed. He almost smiled, then turned back to the battlefield, slamming his fists into the ground. A shockwave rolled outward, scattering drones like leaves in a storm. Above them, Admiral Vrog hovered on a gravity disk, directing fire with a casual grace that made Nyla want to punch his face off. He wore the expression of someone bored at an opera, despite the chaos below. He gestured once, and a trio of drones broke formation, converging on Nyla's position. She ducked, rolled, fired. One drone went down, but the others adapted instantly. A red laser painted her shoulder, and she dove just as the beam cut a perfect line through the rock behind her. She crawled toward cover, her legs screaming, and then the voice returned. Let us handle this. Her body moved without permission. She twisted, brought up her pistol, and fired in a motion too fast to be natural. The second drone exploded. The third launched a missile, and she kicked a loose plate of metal just in time to redirect it back toward the launcher. The blast lit the area in a harsh blue. Breathing hard, she ducked down and hissed through her teeth. Stop helping. I don't need you. Incorrect. She banged the side of her helmet, like that might silence the voice. The Juggernaut landed beside her a moment later, breathing heavy but uninjured. His armor smoked from a dozen glancing hits. You're sinking faster. That's good. No, it's not. It's creepy. Creepy is better than dead. She leaned back against the wall of a broken turret, and wiped sweat from her brow. Vrog's troops were regrouping. A second wave was forming on the ridge above. Too many. Too fast. This wasn't a skirmish anymore. It was a full extraction op. They hadn't come to kill. They'd come to retrieve. They want me alive, she muttered. That's why they're not sending airstrikes. They want what's inside you, Juggernaut confirmed. You're a package. That's not flattering. It wasn't meant to be. A tremor rolled through the ground again, but this time it didn't come from an explosion. The Juggernaut looked up sharply. So did the remaining Nexari soldiers. Everyone paused. A sound followed. Low, melodic, and wrong. Like music played in reverse by a dying machine. Nyla grabbed the side of her head. It's coming from the vault. The energy signature has changed, Juggernaut said. It's responding to the conflict. I thought we locked it. It unlocked itself. The sky above them twisted. A ripple tore through the clouds. Not natural. Not weather. A pulse of light rose from the ground behind them, and a pillar of data, visible data, streamed upward like a beacon. Vrog's troops began retreating. Not in panic. In formation. They're falling back, Nyla said. Why? They're winning. Because they got what they wanted, Juggernaut answered grimly. They just woke Omnis. The ridge cracked open behind them. The air shimmered and bent like heat-off metal. From the rift rose a shape, not solid, not yet. Light and code and motion. A figure with no defined edges, eyes like white fire, limbs shifting like liquid steel. It was huge, hovering, humming with sound and voice combined. Omnis had no face, no mouth, yet its voice rang out across the field. War recognized. Threat indexed. Countermeasure executing. Nyla dropped to her knees, overwhelmed by the force of it. Her body vibrated with the same frequency as the voice. The connection wasn't just mental. It was physical, molecular. She was the key, and now the door had opened. Vrog hovered near the perimeter, watching with fascination. Activate override, he ordered his second in command. One of the drones emitted a pulse. Nyla's eyes went white. She screamed, her body lifting off the ground. Her limbs snapped straight, back arched, head thrown back. The Juggernaut lunged forward but was knocked back by a barrier of light that erupted around her. Omnis hovered closer, its body shifting, mimicking hers. Every movement she made it copied. Not controlling her, mirroring her. Link complete, Omnis said. Host accepted. Synchronization at 89%. Juggernaut rose, staggering. He slammed his fists into the shield, yelling. Nyla. Fight it. She couldn't answer. She couldn't breathe. Images flooded her mind. Galaxies devoured. Machines speaking in silence. Stars dying without sound. A future where she was not a person, but a weaponized god. Inside the chaos, a single phrase echoed from a voice she remembered. Not Omnis. Not Juggernaut. Callan. The real one. From a memory, a laugh, a promise. Last one back to Earth buys the beer. The phrase cut through the noise. It didn't belong to the weapon. It belonged to her. She gritted her teeth and forced her body to twist. It fought back, but she pushed harder, finding the shape of herself inside the hurricane of everything else. Her feet touched ground. The white light dimmed. The shield cracked. The Juggernaut pushed again, breaking through. He caught her before she collapsed. Her eyes were still glowing, but they were hers again. She looked up at him, dazed. Did I win? Not yet, he said. But you're still you. They turned as Omnis flickered. Confused. Disoriented. It looked at her again. This time not as a host, but as an equal. Then it spoke one last sentence before vanishing into static. Next time, we will not ask. And it disappeared. The sky cleared. The tremor stopped. Vrog was gone. So was the army. They had what they wanted. A partial sink. Proof of Omnis' resurrection. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Nyla leaned on Juggernaut as they staggered back toward the outpost. Her body felt like broken glass. Her mind even worse. She didn't know what she was anymore. But for now, she was still standing. And that would have to be enough. The neutral outpost floated in the orbital shadow of Veltrax 9, half drowned in the glow of dying stars. It was an old Alliance refueling station, long since abandoned and now quietly reactivated under false credentials that Juggernaut had forcefully borrowed. They docked in silence. The dropship's hatch hissed open and Nyla stepped out slowly, the metallic floor humming beneath her boots. Her legs moved like they didn't quite belong to her, and maybe they didn't. Everything inside her felt slightly off, like someone had rearranged the furniture in her skull and forgotten to ask first. She wasn't hurt anymore. That was the strangest part. Her wounds had closed. Her muscles felt enhanced. The ache in her bones was gone. The part of her that used to scream in pain was now whispering in curiosity. Juggernaut walked ahead, quiet as always, but every now and then he glanced back like he wasn't sure if she would follow him or explode. She didn't blame him. She wasn't sure either. They moved through the corridors of the outpost until they reached the medical bay. A single operating chair sat in the center of the room, surrounded by diagnostic drones and a wall of equipment that flickered to life the second they entered. She sat without being asked, and the Juggernaut stood nearby like a bouncer for her brain. The scan began, a light passing through her skull, then deeper. Her vitals appeared on the screen, but the numbers were wrong. Too perfect. Her heart rate had dropped to a steady 50. Her neurological patterns had shifted into a rhythm that didn't match any known human registry. The Juggernaut stared at the screen and crossed his arms. "You're changing." She looked at him. "I know." Omnis didn't fully integrate, but it left something behind. A blueprint. Code. Maybe more. She looked down at her hands. They still looked like hers. Still had the scar on her knuckle from when she'd punched a supply crate in a fit of anger during training. But something else was moving underneath. Faster reflexes. Perfect aim. A mind running in parallel. It wasn't that she felt possessed. It was worse. She felt optimized. What happens next? The Juggernaut hesitated. That depends on who finds out first. The Alliance will want to control you. The Nextry will want to finish sinking you with Omnis. And others will want to destroy you just in case you become a threat. And what do you want? His answer came quickly. I want you to stay you. She laughed, low and tired. You always were the optimistic one. He turned away and tapped something into a nearby console. A soft chime followed. Within seconds, a hologram lit up across the wall. A council feed. 12 figures in partial shadow, projected via emergency contact line. The United Galactic Council. The people who made decisions behind glass and distance. Their voices came through in perfect clarity. You've breached quarantine law. You've brought a Class Z anomaly into unsecured space. Nyla stood slowly, brushing hair out of her face. Nice to see you too. The figure in the center spoke again. Lieutenant Nyla Cross. You're listed as Kia. Explain your presence. Explain what's happened on Veltrax 9. She exhaled, steadying herself. We found Omnis. Or rather, it found me. And now it's awake. Gasps echoed. The room behind the council flickered with hurried motion. People whispering. Someone dropped a data pad. One of the representatives leaned forward. And what is your current status? Not fully human. Not fully Omnis. Still making up my mind, I guess. Another voice, angrier. We can't risk this going public. You understand what kind of panic this would cause. She smiled, sharp and cold. Then I suggest you don't let it leak. The Juggernaut stepped into view, towering over the image feed. She's not going anywhere. She's under my protection. One of the council members spoke sharply. You don't have the authority. He looked directly into the camera. I have more than enough firepower. They paused. No one argued. Nyla took a step closer. You sent me out there. You left me. And now you want to chain me down because I survived better than you expected. You don't get to decide what happens to me. The feed flickered. Silence stretched thin. Then the lead representative leaned back into shadow. Very well. But understand this, if Omnis attempts contact again, if you lose control. I won't, Nyla said. We'll be watching. The feed died. The room returned to silence. She leaned on the wall and let her breath out slowly. That went well, she muttered. About as expected, Juggernaut replied. She turned to him. Why did you say that? To the council. That I'm under your protection. Because you are. She stepped closer. But why? You don't know me anymore. You paid your debt the moment you dragged me out of that crater. He looked at her, face unreadable behind his mask. It's not a debt. It's a promise. A pause. And maybe because I'm not sure what I am anymore either. But I know you're the one thing keeping me from losing whatever's left. The weight of the war, the vault, the sinking, the council's threats, all of it hung in the air for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. So now what? Now we disappear for a while. Find answers. Watch the stars. Prepare. Because this isn't over. Omnis isn't gone. Just hiding. Waiting. And someone out there will come looking for it again. She walked toward the viewing deck, stepping into the light of a dying sun. The vast emptiness of space stretched before her, and for the first time in days she allowed herself to breathe without urgency. She wasn't whole, and she wasn't safe, but she was alive. More than alive. She was evolving. Footsteps behind her. The Juggernaut stepped beside her, his reflection flickering in the glass. You know, she said softly, when you said she's mine, back in the crater. I thought you meant it like a weapon claim. Like you were tagging me for salvage. He looked at her, one eye still human, still haunted. I meant it like protocol. Code 47Z. Last defense. No weapons left. Only one option. She blinked. That's not in any official database. It's not public. It's old. Buried. Meant for final moments. And what exactly does it mean? He turned back to the stars. It means I don't let them take you. No matter what you become. She stared at him, then looked back at her own reflection. Her eyes still shimmered faintly. Not human. Not entirely. But not lost. Then I guess, she said quietly, I'm yours? He didn't answer. But he stayed. And for now, that was enough.